Welcome to Commanders Daily, everybody. I'm your host, Bob Matthews. It's your daily look at the local 53. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button there so you don't miss an episode and you are up to date every day on what's going on in Commanders Land. All right, here we are, 9 days away from the NFL draft. As you can see, we're going to hit a couple of the prospects. We're looking at wide receivers today. Supposed to be a deep position, at least when it comes to filling out your roster this year. Not a huge amount of guys that are just superstars out there, but a lot of really solid players that are going to be available late in the draft. So we're going to look at some early, some mid, and possibly some late round guys that could fall to the Commanders depending on how things go. First, though, we got to hit the headline today, and that is that Ian Rappaport and a bunch of other NFL insiders are reporting that Dolphins cornerback, Dolphins defensive back Jalen Ramsey may very well be on the move. Now, there are a bunch of reports out there saying that Jalen and the Dolphins are going to explore a trade. So, begs the question, do you want to bring him into D.C. and team him up with Marshawn Lattimore and give the Commanders two perennial All-Pros, albeit ones that, while still very, very good, are not perhaps at their peak right now? When you look at Daniel's stats and when you look at his analytics and his grades, as always with a shutdown corner or the guy that you've got out there on an island, game by game last year, it was up and down. Had a really good game against Seattle, had good games against the Titans in New England. Okay, Titans in New England, I know. Not great teams last year. Had a pretty good game in Buffalo last year against the Bills. In fact, he had a great game there against the Bills. Good game against the Rams and Matthew Stafford. But the question is, do you start to give up draft capital chasing, multiple veterans just because you've got a franchise quarterback that's on a rookie deal? I don't know. This one, I think, would be a little bit of a stretch. Now, again, you go and look at what Jalen Ramsey has done over his career, and obviously he was great in his 3.5 years in Jacksonville, helped the Rams win a Super Bowl. Last couple of years, though, there has been a fall-off. We go back to our PFF grades. If you look at his coverage grade in 2022, it was at 77.8, which, again, if we've done our homework and our reading, we know is almost an all-pro level there, or pretty much is an all-pro level. But he's dropped back significantly in the last couple of years. He's 31 years old. I don't see Adam Peters doing this one based on what he has done in the past. I think he would rather either roll with what he's got, run it back with what he's got, and maybe add something in the draft as opposed to going out and giving up more draft capital or a player or two for Jalen Ramsey. Again, not that he's not a great player. He played a ton of snaps last year, so he has been healthy the majority of his career. 2019 and 2023 were the only years where he was hurt. Is he a player you could depend on back there? Yeah. Is he very good? Yes. Is he what he was 4 years ago? No. And I think that is possibly going to be the deciding factor for Adam Peters and the front office there. Still, though, it's something that bears watching because, again, when you're in the position that the Commanders are, you've got a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal, you got to make hay while the sun shines, and that means being a little bit more aggressive than you might have been otherwise. All right, let's go ahead and start looking at the draft today. Again, we're 9 days away from it, and today we're previewing the wide receiver category. Wide receivers seen by a lot of draft experts as having a lot of really, really good players that are going to be available late. As a matter of fact, I was listening to Jordan Reed earlier today and says that when you think about it, overall, when you look at the draft at every position, that's kind of what we've got this year. Superstar-wise, not a ton out there, but if you're looking to fill out a roster and build a roster, this is the draft for you, and that's exactly where the Commanders are. Wide receiver-wise, I want to take a look at three of them. A guy that may be available early, a guy that may be available in the middle of the draft, and then a guy that may be available later in the draft. So let's start out with Matthew Golden. This is a guy this is a very, very interesting pick. Now, he's pretty high up on a lot of boards, top 30. And again, don't forget the Commanders have the pick at 29 and then one in the 60s, and then that's it until day 3. He had one hell of a combine. Ran him a 4.29 40-yard dash. He was ranked as the 10th best receiver at the combine. Played at Texas, so he's got that big game experience with a big name program. And the guys at Next Gen Stats say that he is projected to become a pretty good starter within the next 2 years. All right, why do I like Matthew Golden potentially? And again, you're not looking at a guy that's a huge expert when it comes to evaluating NFL talent. I don't want to put that out there, but Golden's got the speed, okay? And if he has got the speed, that's something that this team needs. It needs a guy that can work all 3 levels of the field, and that's what Golden can do. Yeah, his route running needs a little bit of help, but he has got the speed to stretch the field. That's what the Commanders need. They want a burner out there. Remember, losing De'Ami Brown to free agency means they need a burner out there, a guy that can go and get it. He's very twitchy, pluck and tuck, protects the catch throughout contact, and he's got big playability. He can also return punts and kicks for you. And that's something that is, important as well. Again, needs to work on his routes, and he's a little consistent working back on throws, according to the scouts. But still, Matthew Golden could be a guy, if he slips to 29, that the Commanders could target. All right, up next, Savion Williams. This is a guy maybe you're looking at kind of in the middle of the draft, if he can get there. His stats aren't going to wow you, but his tape and his measurables are incredible. Versatile, the notes on him, high-impact NFL player. He can play both on the line. He can play in the backfield, and Cliff Kingsbury likes that. And he can be a returner for you. He's considered elite when it comes to contested catches. And again, that's what you want, is somebody that can go over the middle on that. Very strong upper body, so he's going to be a good blocker. And he was used out of the backfield. So again, he's got that versatility that you can see Cliff Kingsbury is going to like. Did have some bad drops last year, and his footwork isn't as precise as it needs to be. But hey, at this point, you're just looking at potential and work ethic. And this could be a guy that you would look at if he slips to the 4th round. It's definitely somebody I think that Adam Peters might target. But again, when you try to project out into the 4th round, who knows? Shades of Cordell Patterson is how scouts have described him as. So if you want a comp for him, Cordell Patterson is a pretty good one. Finally, I got Isaiah Bond that I'm looking at. Again, this is a guy, and again, you're talking about somebody you're hoping maybe he falls to the middle rounds. I'm not sure that he will because of that world-class speed that he's got. Does need to grow as a receiver. He can't just, I hate to use the term one-trick pony. We saw what happened with Darren Pang when he did that with Ovi, as Ovechkin was going for the goal record for the Capitals. But this guy, if you want a comp on Bond, I'd say Sonorsi Moss. He is described as a top-tier athlete, will put his body on the line, low contested catch percentage, but still he's got really good yak stats, great stop-and-start body control. They say his routes lack a little bit of nuance, and he lacks the strength and the length and the mass to be a blocker. But still, again, you want somebody that can stretch the field. I think that is the real key if the Commanders target some wide receivers in the draft, is they're going to want a guy that can stretch the field. You got Debo, we know he's a beast. You got Terry McLaurin, he's a beast. You've even got a good, tall possession receiver in Noah Brown. Remember, they re-signed him in the offseason. So I think what they're missing and what they really want as far as, if somebody's going to break into that top 4 rotation is a guy that can stretch the field. Get a guy with speed on the outside that can beat you deep, make the corner, make the defensive backs respect the long ball, opens up things underneath. You can open up things underneath between McLaurin, Samuel, and all of the other weapons that Jaden has available to him. That could make it a pretty potent offense if they hit on the right guy. All right, that's going to do it for us. We got to get on out of here. Don't forget, hit the like and subscribe button. Join us every day of the week. Remember, we'll be 8 days away tomorrow from the NFL draft. That's when things start to get interesting. Have you a good one, everybody. Remember, like the wise man once said, if you're out on your bike tonight, as always, do wear white.